Hey everyone, from me, Brent Graham. Sorry, got some water caught in my throat there. It's Thursday night time for the Handicap Rugby Chat That Matters. We're going to be talking URC Week 6 and hopefully the NPC Final. I say hopefully because I've got Oracle here in the studio with me so far. We're just waiting for the Moss Man to join us, but we're going to get cracking in the meantime. So welcome to the Oracle. Oracle, before we get into the rugby, how did you enjoy last night's quiz that we put together? And on that note, let me say, well done, you're the champion.
Yeah, if you win something, my mate Michael in Durban had a very, very good quote, and he said, "The chicks look better, the music sounds better, the beer tastes better when you're winning." So yeah, I'm a winner, and that just feels good. All good, happy, wonderful.
Excellent. Well, just to bring Nathan in, who has joined us now. Good morning to you, Nathan. We were just talking about last night. We did our first ever sort of interactive quiz on Good for the Game, just to test it out, and Oracle actually came out top of the pops there, so just congratulating him. But welcome to the show. Nice. I hope you had a good week.
No, I had a great week. I've actually been on holiday, so yeah, good.
No, nothing like being on holiday. Let's have a look who's in the live chat. We've got Fareed. Yeah, and something Fareed mentioned to me on Twitter I want to actually discuss with you guys, probably before we get into Saturday's fixtures on the URC. So welcome Fareed, Stefan in there, Peter Paul, who played in the quiz as well. It was fun. Definitely maybe a couple of glitches in the system I got to look at, and certainly I made one big mistake on that quiz as well with one of the answers. So that's something to learn for the future. 2M Systems is here. Steamboat, of course, coming at us from the Eastern Cape. Man, they need to get a proper provincial outfit and franchise going there for the public in the Eastern Cape, no doubt about that. And right, guys, we're gonna get cracking into it. Nathan, we'll talk a little bit about the NPC Final at the end, but let me first of all say well done on your Bay of Plenty pick last week. It arrived nicely in the end.
Yeah. So I think pretty much, as certainly as I expected. But yeah, I think it was kind of as I said, it wasn't the same Canterbury team that I think people had been perhaps seeing the previous couple of weeks. So yeah.
No, that's it. And I must say, I threw it into my 10-to-1 accumulator on my newsletter, and it was the third leg which arrived because I had the two Friday night URC games both arrived. And all ended up on the Sharks minus 8.5. And I mean, I could not believe it. They conceded 2 tries in the last 90 seconds to lose that handicap. But anyway, I see the Oracle shaking his head. Oracle, yourself as well. I know you were your main play last week, if I remember correctly, was the Edinburgh minus, which arrived nicely.
Yes, Brent. I did warn you about that Sharks team. Yes, I picked Glasgow on the board. But yeah, out of all of my bets in the last week, I was most disappointed with the Dragons. I don't believe I've called them. Sorry, I don't believe I saw incorrectly. So I'm going to be going for them again tonight. So that's a bit of a spoiler. But yeah, Edinburgh, if you watch the last 5 minutes of the Edinburgh game, it was quite funny. The Plus is arriving and it's less than 2 minutes left. And they score in the corner and the Oaks' foot's out in touch. So they do a line out and Cardiff has the line out. And they chuck the ball. They chuck the ball to Edinburgh, and the Oak falls over the line. So they ended up getting over the minus in the dying seconds of the game. I didn't watch most of it. I must be honest. I only watched the last sort of 15 minutes. But the last 3 minutes, if you're going to watch a replay, get onto DSTV, catch up, and watch the last 3 minutes of that game. It's actually quite funny. From a Plus point of view, there might have been some people taking themselves out because that was horrific for Plus punters. The minus arrived comfortably. The Lions, well, I mean, let's look at the treble. The Stormers, Lions, and Bulls that are called. Bulls, the only one letting us down. That was the even money treble. They were in control of that game and threw it away towards the end. The Lions game, I'm not surprised at the result. Winning the game in atrocious conditions. I know it was daytime, but geez, like that was ridiculous with all of that water.
It was proper rain.
I mean, I remember watching a game with my kid playing, and it was 0-0 at 60 minutes, and I'm thinking, like, you know, am I about to witness my first 0-0 draw? And then one team scored 5, and the other one scored 7, and they obviously won by 2. But yeah, games like that, you know, I know that rugby plays in all conditions, but if there's so much water on the field, you really shouldn't be playing on that field. Rather play on another field. It wasn't. I mean, it was drizzling while they were playing, but the field was a proper leveling ground. I mean, anybody who took the plus in that game against the Lions that was, what do they call it? Shooting ducks or something. I don't know. I can't remember what it was, but it was just too easy. The plus was always going to arrive. The lines, anyway, carry on. Sorry, I can carry on for an hour.
No, the handicap came down before the game. I must say, I was on the Zebra plus 13.5 there, but it was a week where I didn't get too involved. I had two biggish bets, and both of them arrived. It was the overs in the Stormers Munster game, which absolutely snuck in, and also sneaking in the overs in the Leinster game. I was over 44.5, and I think it turned at 45.5. So, a bit of a recovery for me after a poor weekend the week before. But let's get into the action now. We're going to talk Friday night's games. I'm going to go down and start with Nathan on this one. We've got Benetton here against the Bulls, Nathan. Benetton plus 2.5 at home. One thing I just want to point out to everyone, no points lines tonight. I think we've hit poker bet a bit hard over the last few weeks, grabbing some of those early lines. So I haven't been able to find any points lines, certainly not locally. So we're just talking handicaps. Benetton plus 2.5.
Yeah, my week was kind of the opposite to yours, Brent. So I sort of found value across all of those URC games and ended up sort of having a go at all 8 games and went 5-3. One of the losers was that Lions game, and I knew something was up when it moved sort of 2 points not long before kickoff. And straight away thinking, okay, there's something up, and it was obviously completely weather related. The other one that was interesting was Benetton last week, because I flipped on that. I think in the show last week, I think I was going the other way, but ended up going on Benetton, and I guess that's when we talk about team use, it's a good example of how much influence it can have. I just completely changed my mind on that one and went there. And the Sharks, when I saw it in your newsletter, I just chuckled to myself, to be honest. It was like, we don't like to talk too much about like there being sort of sharp and square plays in rugby, but you really felt like that the Sharks was the square side on this one.
Yeah, it was. I mean, let's face it. I mean, they were 16 points ahead with 90 seconds to go, and I'm on minus 8.5. I'm thinking, I don't mind if you concede a try. Just, I mean, you're still going to beat this handicap. It was just one of those things. Their last try they conceded was unbelievably poor defense. It was, but I'll be thinking twice. Fortunately, I didn't have an actual outright bet on them because I had the ACCA ending, so I didn't actually have a big stake on it. But obviously, I had quite a nice big return there. But this game now, let me just go back to this.
Yeah,
Bulls. I'm say Bulls 1-12. Yeah, he reckons a narrow Bulls win.
Yep. So this one's come in a little bit as well. So again, I was quite keen on Benetton when it was sort of kicking around 3.5, but it's come in a point which is starting to get into the range where I'd probably leave it alone. So we'll see. If I can find another 3.5, I'd probably still lean towards Benetton. And we sort of talked last week, and I know Oracle mentioned that, Jake White, it's not silly. And he's not, which makes me wonder whether, this entire trip is just something that he is just not really that keen on, not really interested in. I'm not saying they're not trying, because, I don't think they ever not try. But the question is he putting the team in the best position to win right now versus perhaps down the road? And it might be that he's just decided that he's going to play a different sort of game, play a little bit of chess maybe or something. So that's for that reason. I wouldn't be steaming into the Bulls, for those that are probably thinking, oh, here we go. So you've seen a comment, Bulls to smash Benetton by more than 10. Yep, and you would have said the same thing last week, right? So. These lines are what they are for a reason. I think there's a lot of uncertainty around what the Bulls are trying to do right now.
And I agree with you. My reading of the situation is that obviously the Bulls picked up the points the week before in their first match. They then made a lot of changes. I think Jake White thought his team would get the job done with the changes in last week's game. And I mean, possibly they would have, and a red card, which I don't want to talk about the red card that much. It's got rescinded, but probably would have been a yellow anyway, so they would have lost the guy anyway. But just that they had themselves to blame. But I think, White, I think he was banking on last week's team actually getting the win. I think he thought they would get the win against that opposition. So I think he is in a bit of a tough situation. Now, Benetton, they impressed me last week. I also was opposing them last week on the show. I never changed my mind, although I never got too heavily involved in the game. But I've been hell of impressed with them when playing at home. I think it was the Sharks that they beat quite comfortably. And let's go up to Oracle there on this one. Oracle, a bit of support in the live chat there for the Bulls, but Nathan is sort of saying, be careful, guys.
Yeah, Brent, excuse me. I think that this is a game where it's either Benetton or it's no bet. I wouldn't be taking the Bulls here. As Nathan said, we don't know what's going on. It looks dubious. It looks nefarious. You can come up with any word that ends in IOUS to describe this Bulls team. But honestly, I think there's a bit of value about this Benetton team. And they've got history as well. If you remember, this is the 2020 Sunshine or whatever it was, Cup, where they played the Bulls in Italy.
Rainbow Cup.
Rainbow Cup, that's right. Sorry, I forget the name. There's a bit of history here. I'm going to say I'm going to have a small bet on Benetton on the board here. In fact, I may even go and split my bet, 3/4 on the board and a quarter on a -5 or 6 Benetton here for a bit of a price. I can't be touching Bulls here. So if you wanting to back the Bulls, I'm going to tell you don't do it. Either back Benetton or don't have a bet. It's a small pick for me, but I've got no confidence in the Bulls in this game. No ways. Not for me.
100%. Just to mention, if any of the guys in the live chat have seen any total points lines, feel free to mention them then, and we can discuss that. Of course, that's generally my bread and butter, is the total points. Last week, I was even watching a webcam in the Zebra town center of the town square or whatever, and all I saw was people with umbrellas and that. I was watching it the whole of Saturday morning. So the other thing I just want to mention, quite an interesting one from a points point of view, and I think it was Gav, you mentioned it, should they even have played on that field that was so wet?
Yes.
And that's where all of these, knowing whether a field, and in the old days, it was always grass. Nowadays, these artificial pitches, you can have torrential rain all morning, and the rain clears up, and you actually have pretty decent conditions to play in. Whereas like at Zebra, you had the torrential rain for like a day and a half, and of course, the mud doesn't just clear up straight away. So just a note for total points punters to be careful of that sort of thing. And these synthetic pitches have certainly changed the shape of it. But Gav, let's go into Friday night's second game. We've got the Scarlets here, definitely on a high this season. They've had back-to-back victories now. They're -17.5 against Zebra. I did not think a cap this would be this high. I personally capped this game Scarlets -12.5. But it's out there at 17.5. It's a big cap with Zebra on the road. Yeah, they very seldom give teams too much trouble. What do you think here, Oracle?
What did we see? The handicap Zebra in Leinster was 28, I think, which is 11 more than this. I could be wrong, but I think it was around about there, 28 to 29. I don't know that Scarlets are within 12 points of Leinster. So I'm going to tell you there's a bit of value here. I know that they just scraped it. They ended up winning by 30 or 31, I think it was in the end. I'm a small Zebra plus 17.5 punter here. Nothing fantastic. I'm with you. Logically and mathematically, this just looks too big. And it just looks too big. I'm a Zebra plus punter. No problem. Easy choice, small money.
Right, the Admiral coming in, giving us a points line for this game is 45.5. And we'll go to Nathan to get his views on this one.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually seeing 18.5 at Bet365. And, at that number, or even the number on the board here, I think there's definitely some interest in the Scarlets for me. I'm not a big believer in looking at sort of past meetings between teams, because there's always a lot of change between seasons, and I don't think a result from 3 or 4 years ago really means that much in the context of the current day. But I did notice that Scarlets have beaten Zebra handily, like in the last sort of 5 meetings or so, but not by this kind of number. So I'm sort of looking at it and thinking this is something that they could struggle to get. If you want to construct a bit more of a narrative around it, I imagine that some of the Scarlets possibly looking forward to the internationals as well, wouldn't be too keen on picking up injuries going into that period. So might be just keen to kind of get the job done and leave it at that.
Right, yeah, quite possibly. I must say this is a game that I am also leaning towards Zebra, mainly because I'm sort of backing myself in the sense that my opening handicap was a bit lower. But not a game I'm going to get terribly involved in. Scarlets just aren't the sort of team I feel I can trust with a big handicap. If I had to compare them South African Curry Cup side, I might say something like the Pumas. They can perform quite well as underdogs sometimes, but just not the sort of side you necessarily want when you're looking for them to chase down a big handicap. So, yeah, a bit of a tough one, that. I just want to raise, obviously now we're moving into matches where we don't have any team news and stuff. And Nathan, to your point, I mean, it is pretty important. So we're going to talk about the handicaps. I think the team news this week, there may not be as many big surprises as there were last week. But we'll obviously talk about the games. But just the thought that Fareed actually mentioned on Twitter is perhaps doing this, the URC section of the show, after the teams are announced. What do you guys think of that? I'll start with you, Nathan. I don't know how that would fit in with you, though. You might be fast asleep at the time the teams are announced for the URC. Is it 12, 1 o'clock South Africa time, or is it like evening, night time for you?
No, yeah, it's so it depends a little bit on the time of year because we've got daylight savings here. They're obviously then in the UK because it's midday UK time, and obviously that can either be 11 p.m. here or 1 o'clock in the morning here or midnight, depending on where they are in the calendar. So, I guess in terms of being straight after, that would be a bit of a struggle. Interesting, I actually do get up on occasions just to try and pick off these numbers before they move. But I'm more likely to be doing that than sitting around talking about it, to be honest.
No, fair enough. And I think what we really got to do is somehow pressure the URC just to get all the teams to name their sides on Thursday afternoon. It'll make so much sense, like they do with Super Rugby, and that the Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, all the sides are out and everybody can sort of move on there. Oracle, also, I know you also work, so I mean, 2 o'clock in the afternoon is not the best time for you to come on, but there is perhaps some merit in looking at trying, maybe even a short little show after the team news or something like that, or even a little live as the teams are announcing, just to look at the handicaps. What do you think?
Yeah, so Brent, I say I'm actually should be saying no, because I got to tell you, I don't think I've ever watched or even waited for a team news meeting ever. It's never affected me. I'm not joking. I mean, I know people laugh at me, but I've made money without ever worrying about that. And I don't worry about anything anyway, but if I had to worry about it, what do they say? Don't fix something that's not broken. I don't know. I'm okay. I don't, a lot of these oaks, if I met them in a pub or walking down the street, I wouldn't know who they are. I'm okay with that. I don't have FOMO for not worrying about who a player is. And obviously the Springbok games out of 15 in a year or 14, I watch all of them. And I got to say, out of watching every Springbok game for the last 5 years, if you lined up 100 Springboks that have played in the last 5 years, or 80, whatever it is, I'm going to tell you, you can take plus 12 and a half here, and you're going to win. I don't even know 13 of them. So I'm okay. It doesn't matter to me. Don't know. Doesn't matter. I'm happy.
So fair enough. I mean, you don't have to know the players, but I think one thing what you do find in the URC, and particularly if there's like, are the Springboks going to be involved or not, and internationals, or Ireland pulling the internationals or not? I mean, I think there is value in getting in early if there is some team news. I mean, maybe that's not necessarily your strategy.
No, I think to answer that question, Brent, sorry, I do understand that team news makes a difference. I'm not that half asleep, but of course it makes a difference. I'm saying it's already priced in. And I think if you're going to be taking, minus 13 and a team and handicap moves to 19, you're going to end up getting closed. I'm not even taking that bet. I don't want to take it. I remember people phoning me saying, these guys have still got this handicap. I don't want it. I'm just going to end up getting closed. I've realized that having an open account is gold. So I don't want to mess with that. I'm happy winning at my own pace. I'm not trying to buy a house with this money. I'm trying to take my wife out to my favorite restaurant 800 meters down the road, and that's good enough for me. I don't need to pay school fees. That was 2017. Where I had to win money every month. But honestly, my punting now is for fun. It's to buy small stuff and have a bit of a go. So I'm okay with that. I don't need to. Blake's about right. Is that Todd Clever's brother?
I'll give
and all that. Yeah, I just believe that it's built into the price, and of course it's important. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying move the handicap, and I'm making my decision mathematically on the handicap. That's all I'm doing. That's really, in a summary, I punt I'm a mathematical punter, and I'm going to go back to what Nathan said. When I'm retired and I've got time, I'm going to build a model, and I'm going to, rank every single player, and I'm going to take the team news and I'm going to punch it. And I'm telling you now, even after they make the team decision, they still get it wrong. There's 2, 3, 4 points based. If you're doing this, pricing the game up yourself, and you value the player. Sorry, you apply a value to each player, and you put in all sorts of algorithms in there, and I'll do that. Mathematically, there's no issue for me. It's just time. I'll beat them even better. That's what I'm telling you. These bookmakers need to worry in 3 years. When I've got time to build stuff like this and do it, I don't need trouble. Right now, I'm just punting on what I see and what feels value. And it works for me. I don't know how else to say it.
No, that's a gap. I think the point. My question wasn't really directed at you and having a go at your strategy. I was just saying, what do you think of the idea of a couple of words on a Friday afternoon? But I take your point.
If you come on at 2:00 on Friday, I'll watch you while I'm having a beer because I finish early.
No. It's also a big commitment to make. A Friday afternoon generally when you start winding down. But let's get back to the rugger here. We got Stormers -7.5 against Glasgow. Yeah, Glasgow, of course, finished strong to pick up those 2 bonus points against the Sharks. And the Stormers, well, they did the job in the end against Munster. Probably the final margin, sort of, how can I say it, doing Munster in a bit. They were trying to, at the end, go for the bonus point, and the Stormers got to intercept. What do you think of this game, Nathan?
This one, actually, just going to Oracle's point about things being priced in, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think it's a bit of yes and no. And the thing is that where it's priced in is that there's always uncertainty, right? So when I look at this number, for instance, like which is, I'm looking at Bet365, -7.5 Stormers. Now, there's no way in a million years that if everybody assumed that these are two full-strength teams, that this number would be what it is. This number is pricing in some uncertainty around the Glasgow team. And depending on what happens, it's going to change, right? So, we don't know. So that's why I wouldn't touch this current number at all. Like, why would I get involved now when I don't know? Like, and there'll be people out there. And if you're this style of better, good on you. That's fine. Like that, you will take these really early numbers because you read something on the internet. It's an information move. It's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. And maybe you'll cash out later or do one of these things. And if you're betting, $10 a game or whatever, which is perfectly fine, you're just doing it for a laugh, that's fine. That's a legitimate way to do this. But if what you're doing at that level is not really sustainable, because picking off early numbers, cashing out of things, like as Oracle said, you are going to get noticed and you're going to get limited doing that style of betting. So as I said, it's perfectly fine, but it doesn't scale. You are going to get caught out eventually doing that kind of thing. So, so that said, like, I wouldn't touch this at the current number just because there's the uncertainty is currently priced in. And the way to look at it is that this could be, if a full strength Glasgow team comes out, this number should probably be, I don't know, it could be close to picking. Like, that's how close it could be if these teams were full strength. And then, the flip side is, I would say that this is pricing in, maybe a half strength, 3/4 strength, maybe half strength Glasgow team. So not completely weak, but sort of in there, which means that it could have another couple of points to run, right? It could get to 9.5 if it goes the other way. So that's a huge range of it. You've got 10 points of range there, and we don't know where this game currently sits.
Yeah, I hear you then. In fact, last week as well, just from what I saw of Glasgow, watching that game, these guys, some overseas teams come here and you can almost see they're happy to probably take a couple of bonus points out of the tour. But Glasgow side, I think that have really just matured into a side that believes in themselves and are strong. And I'm expecting, whatever team they select, and I agree with you on the handicap, I'm expecting them to have a full go here. Already got quite a lot of different opinion in the live chat. We've got some guys saying, Stormers will do the business, but I would say the majority are suggesting that Glasgow have got a chance of winning this game.
Yes, and I think they're very right. So last week I said include Stormers in your multiple. I wasn't confident at the minus, and I know it was 7 at the start of the week. It came down to 3. I still wasn't confident. For me, this was a 1 or 2 point win, if anything, with the Stormers, and I wouldn't have been surprised if they'd lost the game. In saying that, I wasn't that impressed with Munster.
No, what are we talking about? This?
Munster. Yeah.
The two
No, last
Stormers
week,
played.
Munster and Stormers.
Yeah, Munster. Yeah.
Yeah. So Stormers won. They won the game just like Glasgow did in the last 10 minutes. In fact, if you had to pair the two, Glasgow versus Munster, you might find that it would be very close to a tie in the last 7 minutes of the game. Sorry, Stormers and Glasgow. I just think there's a bit of value here. You're probably going to get 28-10, maybe 3-1 if you shop around. I think that's enough for me to back Glasgow on the board. There's one other thing that's quite important here, is that they're playing this game in I think it's about a 7,000-seater, 6,000-seater at the University of Stellenbosch. It's extremely prone to heavy wind. The wind has been blowing in Cape Town in the last few days, not necessarily today, so don't hate me on the chat. Yes, the wind wasn't blowing today, but we've had decent wind over the last few days, and you'd have to check the wind barometer, but it's very prone to wind there, and you'll get a bit of a crowd. They probably fill it up at 6,000-7,000 people. I don't know how many exactly, but I'm going to tell you that the Stormers do not know this ground. This is not a home ground for them. I know they play a game every year there, so maybe 10 of the 23 or 12 of the 23 have played a game. In fact, they may have even played Glasgow here 2 years ago. But this Glasgow team showed enough for me at the Sharks last week to suggest that they can win a game. They started a bit late. They were a bit unlucky during that Sharks game. I'm going to say they can win this game. And I agree with Rion. Take a nibble. I'm not going to bother with a plus here, Rion. I'm going to go straight. Have a small bet. Glasgow on the board. Good enough for me. 3-1. I'm happy. I don't need to get involved in pluses. Can the Stormers win this game by 20? Of course they can. Why the hell are they playing in Stellenbosch? So I'm going to tell you, Fareed, I actually agree with this. I like to take rugby to the smaller towns, and yes, it's only 50 k's from Cape Town. It's not a problem. But I do think that a lot of people, and I've often lived 50 k's from a rugby stadium, and I like the fact that rugby does come to me sometimes. When I was 25, I watched 80% of the games at the local stadium. Today at 53, I watch 3 games a year at a stadium, if not 2. So I don't mind if rugby comes closer to me. It's nice for the public. It's nice for the viewing. And if you watch the breakdown show this week, they spoke about the red card. It's for the public. This is not about betting. It's about us punters trying to work out whether this is value or not, or which way to go. So I understand why they're playing at Stellenbosch. I think it's a great idea. But I think this goes against the Stormers. I don't think this is a plus for the Stormers.
Yeah, interesting. I'll just comment before we continue with the games. I'll comment on Fareed's there. I'm kind of with Fareed a little bit here because I'm with you, Gav. I like the idea of playing in Stellenbosch, but I'm not sure that Glasgow is the game you want to be playing in Stellenbosch, because Glasgow are a sort of team that can pull a bit of a crowd. I mean, you could probably get 15,000 in Cape Town there, whatever. So I like it. If Zebra are coming, play them in Stellenbosch. But I think Glasgow, personally, I would have gone with Glasgow at the Cape Town Stadium, but it's probably a sort of a touch and go one there. Oracle, we're going to stick with you. Go for Ospreys plus 6.5 against Edinburgh, who delivered for you so nicely last week.
Edinburgh minus. They did enough for me last week. I know they got over the line, as I mentioned earlier. I'm just happy with this Edinburgh team. I think they're going to have a great year. They look very good. After they got smashed by the Lions, I'm impressed with this team. They've bounced back. This is an easy game for them. Minus for me. And I'm going to say at this stage, out of all of the games, this is my biggest bet. Okay,
we'll go to Nathan. Nathan, what should we be looking out here for sort of team news? Anything you can see influencing this one?
Well, there is a lot of talk around about the international teams and who's at camp and various other things. And I don't specifically know how it's affecting, say, the Wales team and the Scotland team. It's had a big effect in the Premiership, where a lot of the England players have kind of disappeared, and that's caused massive changes to lineups and massive changes in the betting lines as well. And so I don't really know what's the effect that that's going to have on this game. Like, this is one where, to me, I think everybody will want to bet Edinburgh, and often for me, that means the value's on the other side. So, it's probably wait and see with team news, wait and see if there's a possible, possibly better line on the Ospreys. But yes, sometimes these kind of hold your nose bets are the ones that you really want to be making, because everybody's on one side, and naturally with that, the value is quite often on the other.
100%.
I'm pretty
Right,
sure
move on to the next
there won't be anybody supporting Ospreys. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, true. Let's move on to the next game, and we'll start with you here, Nathan. Sharks, you got pretty much the same handicap as last week, -8.5 against Munster. I haven't checked. Did the Sharks normally name their side on Thursday? We're not sure if they do that because they forget when they're playing, as you mentioned last week, or not. But Sharks -8.5. What do you think of that one against Munster?
Yeah, this is a tricky one because, again, I have this thing in my mind about Munster early on in the season. You know, if this game was being played in, April, I would feel probably quite differently about this. But I think it's one I'd probably leave alone for the moment, just because of that feeling that I've got about Munster's consistency at this part of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, it might be a game I leave alone just based on last week. The trauma is still too close at hand for me, of the way they threw that handicap away. Gavin, did you want to say something on the previous game before getting stuck into this one?
No, I was just going to say, it doesn't matter which Sharks team shows up. The captain's about to get divorced, and even my wife was involved in Facebook conversations about the breakup of Siya Kolisi and his wife. So, yeah, I think there's a bit of an issue there, and that does affect a team. I've been with captains that have had a bad week personally, and I've seen it, cricket and rugby, it affects them. So I'm not sure if Siya Kolisi is playing, but I've got to tell you, never mind all of that. I'm still not. I'm not a Sharks punter yet here this year. I did get involved in the first couple of games, but nothing that impressed me. I think they were lucky to win the game last week, and I think Munster win this game as well. I'm a board punter here, and I think the Stormers were lucky to beat that handicap. I expected them to win by a couple of digits. I was very surprised they won by 16 in the end, or 14 or whatever it was. Yeah, I'm a Munster punter here. I think they don't want to leave South Africa without any points. They've got 0 at the moment. I think they scrape in here. I think they win on the board by a point or 2. Sharks, I've got no confidence in the Sharks at the moment.
A live chat, guys. Farid is on the Sharks, Rian on the Sharks, and Mark says Munster will be hammered. It seems like they got a few injuries. Oracle,
I wanted to say one more thing. Sorry, you asked me what I was going to say. It's Nathan mentioned a comment to say that when everybody's on one side, you want to get on the other. Nathan, if you haven't read yet, there's a book called Smart Money, written by a poker player in 1999 and 2000. I read this book in about 6 hours, and he talks a lot about that. You'd love this book. You're in this realm of bookie punter kind of thing, and you're old enough to have been alive in 1999. So yeah, go look for it. It's called Smart Money. Michael Kelnick, something like that. Very, very good. Look it up. Smart Money, it's called. You won't put it down. Very, very good.
It wasn't Miserak, eh? Michael.
I can't remember, but
I think I read that book. I'll read it again.
Yeah, it was hell of a good.
I remember you used to have a profile pic, I think, on your WhatsApp, and it used to be a whole lot of fish swimming in one direction.
Yes.
And then there was
that's from Fargo. Did you ever watch Fargo? Fargo, the TV series. The guy goes down into the basement to go recover the body he's got in the freezer, and there's a picture on the wall with orange fish swimming one way and 12 pink fish swimming the other way, and it says, "Maybe you're right," and they're all wrong. So yes, I did have that as my profile pic for a long time.
I often think of that, because often when a run's coming on a particular team, you know, it's very tempting just to hop on board. But sometimes you've got to stop and think, what's actually driving this? And maybe everybody else.
One of my favorite quotes, Brent, is that Ike was sitting in the casino in Nevada or Las Vegas or whatever, and he had a bag of like $180,000, and he was instructed to wait for a handicap to move from +3 to +4. So he sat there for like hours and hours and hours. And again, I read this book 20 years ago or 15 years ago. And, he's sitting there and he's telling us, the reader, how he feels. And he says, and he sees it go +4.5, and he walks up to the counter with the money, and he says it took them half an hour to count the money with their counting machines, and eventually got the bet on. But he didn't understand what they were doing and why they were doing it and why that number was there. And if I remember correctly, that particular game arrived at 4. It's NFL, so they're not punting rugby; they're punting NFL. Before internet and before well, it was all call center stuff, and they had all sorts of people. But it's a great read. And, in the beginning, he's a complete naive punter, doesn't understand what's going on in this world. He met people by accident, and he eventually becomes very successful. And it's, because there's rules here. If as punter, you follow specific rules. If it's not right, you walk away. Like I've often said in bets, it's either this or it's no bet. And I stand by that. And if the handicap is not right for me on that team I'm looking to punt, I don't have a bet. I watch the game and I enjoy it. I have a beer, watch the game, I walk away. I'm not going to sit there taking -7 when -5 was my number, only to see it lands on 6 or 7 and I'm out. So I don't want to get involved in that. I see you've got my Lions game up here. I'm going to tell you, this is a very biased one for me, or not biased, but it's price orientated. Yes, I'm a Lions supporter. They've had a great start to the season, so I know that everybody's going to take this review or preview with a pinch of salt. I'm going to tell you, I've seen 10-1 about my Lions team in this game. I'm going to have a little bit of money on the 10-1, and I'm going to watch this game. I don't know what to say to you. 18 seems too much. And again, let's go to the 27-28 against the Zebra the other day. Are they 11 points better than the Lions on a fair field in good weather? I don't think they are. This handicap feels too big for me, but I'm really interested in the. I'm going to wrong. I'd like to say they're the wrong favorite, but they're not the wrong favorite. I just think at double digits here, 10. I might hang out for a bit of 11 or 12, depending on whether. I'm hoping the market takes the minus here and pushes this out a bit. But at 10-1, my Lions in this game, I'm going to have a small punt on that. And if I win, I'm having a Lions breakfast on Sunday morning. That's all I can tell you.
Your man, my Bluetooth screen says happy. Oh, hello, Opa Oracle. And before I bring Mark in before I bring Nathan in, on this one, Mark saying if Leinster are full strength, then yes, otherwise no. So interesting this, Nathan, because I'd read, and you talk about reading on the internet, when I handicapped this game, I'd read somewhere that the Irish players were not going to be available for this game. And in fact, I sent Mark Dumpy actually a message. He's over there in Ireland, and I said to him, so I kept the game around about the 10-point mark. And then the moment I heard, he said, no, Farrell says the guys are all available. Then immediately, I think there was even 7.5 markets set overseas, and then it leapt up to sort of 18.5 on that. So we're expecting Leinster to go full strength for this one. Have you heard anything different?
No, I haven't heard anything. Like I said, it was basically just the England team. And so when I heard that, I thought, well, why are they doing something different from what the other teams are doing? And I don't know the answer to that. In the absence of actually knowing that, I do like the Lions. I think that's a big number. And, even if they don't necessarily rest some of the players, and I think it's likely they'll rest some, I just wonder a little bit about the mindset, right? Whether you probably couldn't help but look ahead. If you're an international player, you're probably thinking to yourself, are you really going to go, full noise 110% in this game when, next week you're playing. To be fair, I don't know who they're playing, but let's say you're playing somebody to you, and let's say they're playing the Box next week, and I don't know if they are, but all I know is actually it's All Blacks England next week. I don't actually know the others, but if you are one of those players who's playing in one of those games, you might be looking to get pulled after 55 minutes or something. Keep a little bit of juice left in the tank, that sort of thing. So I definitely at the moment leaning towards the Lions.
I just want to say something else. So my issue here is this Irish or this Leinster team, like we were talking about Stellenbosch, and you were saying, Stormers want to play Zebra at Stellenbosch. This Leinster team might be looking at this and thinking, these guys were a bit lucky to get to where they are now. They haven't qualified for the Champions Cup in a couple of years, but they've had a really good start to the season. And, I don't know. I mean, maybe we need to ask this question and say, well, what would the Sharks be? What plus would the Sharks be in this game? What plus would the Stormers and Bulls be? Surely they double digits as well. I mean, are South African teams single-digit pluses in Leinster without knowing a team? It just feels a bit too big here. And for a team that's had a great start, this and I know in soccer they say this all the time, top of the table clash. These are the last two unbeaten teams in this tournament right now. Lions didn't do nothing to get to this point. They've beaten some decent teams here. So I think Nathan's right. I think a lot of these players, from a player perspective, not a team perspective, the player's thinking to himself, I want to play for Ireland next week. Or I think I could play for Ireland next week from a fringe player perspective. I don't want to crush themselves in this match. And this is a game which they probably think to themselves, yeah, if we lose this game, is at the end of the world. It's Lions. They're not going to affect us at the end of the year. I think this is a big price. And I will more than likely have a plus bet at some point over the next few days. But as Mark Dunphy said, at 10 double digits, anything, 10, 11, 12 to 1, I'm definitely on the board here. I can't see Leinster running away with this game.
There's a couple of
in running bets for half-time if Leinster build a big lead. And Johan, that is what I've also said the last couple of weeks, and I've noticed Leinster do tend to start very strong. They get their 4 tries, and then they almost seem to focus on defence. And so that's not a bad strategy, I think, is to oppose Leinster at half-time if they built a big lead. I wouldn't do it if the Lions are still very much in contention at that stage. But Leinster, just these days, they're a side who wins well, but they don't tend to run away with games. That being said, if Leinster's at full strength here, I can't have the Lions on the handicap. I think this Leinster side will be too strong. I think the defence is good. And if anything, I might be looking at sort of like a Lions unders play or something like that. Ireland, of course, this is going to be a cracking game. Ireland play New Zealand on the 8th of November. I cannot wait for that one. It's going to be brilliant. It is a bit of a pity we don't play Ireland in the year-end internationals this year. But yeah, sorry. Comments are coming through quick. I can't even keep up there, boys. But yeah, I'm leaning towards Leinster. They name a full strength side, but I'm more than likely going to back them by going Lions unders points. I think the Leinster defence will be too strong. Anything further there from you on this one, Nathan?
Just looking at the comments, so someone just pointed out that Ireland aren't playing in a game next week. So I guess that means they've got the week off. So as I said, let's just wait and see. What team they put out. I'm not committing to anything at this point. I never do. So I thought that was kind of, an interesting comment. And the other thing is, Fareed saying Leinster have hit the cap in almost every game this year. Is that? I mean, again, haven't looked, but and I did see a comment that they'll smash them by 30. And I guess when I see those kinds of comments, I think to myself, well, the line is 18.5 for a reason, right? If they're gonna easily clear 30, then it would be 30. It's just the line is the line. There's a lot of collective wisdom in that number, and I don't think that you can be too dismissive of what the market is actually telling you. So yeah, that's my view.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Look, I predict this. If Leinster name a full strength side, I don't think the minus 18.5 lasts. I think it'll start minus 22.5. Minus 23 if Leinster go full strength. So I'll also be waiting here for team news on this one. But yeah, very interesting. I'm honest, it's a game I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to tell us a lot about this Lions team. Because yes, the Lions have won 4 and they're definitely a big improvement on last season. And I think as a Lions, whether you're a fan or whatever, you're going to be interested to see how they go against Leinster, because this ultimately is the biggest test in the URC at the end of the day. Going to be interesting. Things like players' mindsets and that, what you said, Nathan. I mean, that's also a fascinating thing to start considering, how motivated are the players. A good point that Ireland are not playing necessarily next weekend. They're going on a training camp. So looking forward to this game, I must say. Leaning Lions unders here at the moment. Right, let's stick with Nathan. Then we've got Cardiff plus 4.5 against Ulster. I've got a feeling we're not going to talk as long as on this game. But what do you reckon here? What are we on the lookout for, Nathan?
This one is kind of like right where I expected it to be, but the only thing is that based on the way I'm kind of operating, is that I know that I have Cardiff overrated because they underperform versus the numbers that I'm actually producing. So whether that's me being too low, whether the market has them priced more correctly than I do, I don't know. But it's kind of like, what I do is I have like a second level of analysis, right? So one is like I produce all these numbers, I know what my projection is, but then at the second level, I then look at all of the teams and I say, am I plus minus in my predictions of those teams? And, Cardiff are right at the bottom of that list with, like a big minus number and a big red kind of, color next to their name, which is telling me that I'm wrong on Cardiff more than I'm on any other team. And so, if I produce a number that's right around this line, but I know that Cardiff are overrated based on my numbers, then I can kind of be confident of going the other way, which would make me sort of lean towards Ulster, although my projection is sort of around 3 and this is 4.5. So there's an uncertainty there, but I don't know how far underrated I have it. So it's almost like, it's going to be Ulster or nothing, basically, is what I'm saying. And what I'd be hoping for is that when the teams came out, that number moved a little bit in my reckoning and got me closer to the 4.5. And then I might go, yeah, that's enough to get me on Ulster.
Right.
Probably makes no sense to anyone, but it makes perfect sense to me.
No, but I hear what you, I do hear what you're saying there. And for me, okay, I haven't got the same rating system in that, but this is also a game for me that I kept very close to this mark as well. So it's kind of leaning, and frankly, if I'm looking at it from a viewership point of view, because I was actually just saying to Oracle, I was talking just before you came on off air, we were saying, like, I'm not saying you don't watch rugby, but at the end of the day, watching the game is not that important for you in terms of your betting strategy. You've got your model and you work to it, and that I think is why people enjoy your input as well, because a lot of the emotion that might go into the game from other people is taken out of it. But if I look at this game, I kind of look at it and go, I haven't actually looked at the time, but probably at the same time as the Connacht game, and I'll probably just watch the other game, because this one doesn't have such a strong lean for me. But yeah, it's just one of those games that looks pretty tough to call. Oracle?
Yeah, so Nathan doesn't watch games and I don't know the players. And this is the show we're putting out to the world. It's a good thing we're not charging anybody. Yeah, so I just want to make a comment. I saw I think it was Rihanna, or I can't remember who put it on, Rachel Khaleesi having more World Cup medals than Ireland. It reminded me of when Tiger Woods, when the wife got involved with the 5 wood and smashed up the car, and eventually they got divorced, and the joke going around at the time was who's made more money, who's made the most money out of golf, and everyone goes Tiger Woods. And said no, it's actually the wife. And she didn't even swing a club. So yeah, as one of my friends many years ago said, don't get married if you can't afford to get divorced. I'm in my 30th year at the moment, so I'm okay. I'm not in any trouble. But yeah, talking about this game, I've got to say that last week I was happy taking -12 against this team. I'm going to tell you that this is Ulster for me. I'm going to say I'm going to be a bit speculative here and say I'm going to take a -9.5 here for a double-digit win. It feels mathematically correct and it feels achievable, and I'm going to go with Nathan and say that I too at the beginning of the season, I actually won in that first game on Cardiff. I thought a bit more about them, but yeah, I'm a Ulster minus punter here, and I'm not going to bother with a 9 to 10. I'm going to take a bigger one, go for a double-digit minus here. Sorry, a minus that allows for a double-digit win.
100% going for a bigger one there on also a bigger handicap. Let's let you start us off on the last game, Oracle. Connacht -17.5 against the Dragons.
They got the wrong favourite here. Dragons win this game. I backed them last week. I know that they didn't get across the line. I only watched a little bit of the game. But this is like the lines. This is crazy. This is going to be like 7, 8, 9 to 1. Have a go at the Dragons here. They can win this game, and they are the most improved. This is sorry, I'm reading a message from my wife that's just coming through here. She's sooking with me.
She wants a divorce, Gav.
Yeah. Hey, quieten down. Right. I'm going to tell you this is too big. Back the Dragons to win the game. Yeah, they're the most improved Welsh team. This is what these were basement dwellers. These guys were pit dwellers last year. No, they've had a fantastic start to the season, and this is I don't know if this is an English word, but this is insultery. This is insult stuff. -17 is way too big for a team that no. This game will be far closer, and I expect Dragons to have a real shot at winning this game. Take Dragons to win. And I'm going to tell you, I did this in 2016, I think it was. I backed the Lions to win Super Rugby, 33 to 1, and I backed Leicester to win the English Premier League. Don't worry, not 5,000 to 1. I took Leicester at 33 to 1 in January, and I still remember talking to the guys in the office saying, it's the middle of January, and you telling me the team leading the EPL is 33 to 1. And they all laughed at me. I took the double, 100,000 Rand to 100 Rand. And of course, as we know, the Lions didn't win. Leicester did win. I made money there. But this is the kind of double you can take. Take the Dragons and the Lions as a double. And if it wins, take your partner out for the weekend, because that's the kind of money you're going to get on 9 times. That's 100 to 1, close to 100 to 1 double. And they both can win.
Right, interesting. I mean, Nathan, I capped this game as kind of fairly big favourites, but I wasn't quite 17.5. I was 14.5. So, when you get up to these 17.5, 18.5 lines, you do start, if you fancy the minus a bit, you do start getting a little bit nervous in some games. What do you make of this one?
It's actually interesting just talking about combining some of these alt lines. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys sort of bet NFL or familiar at least with NFL. In American sports, NFL, they have a concept of what they call a teaser, and they'll combine 2 alt lines together. And what they're trying to do is they will tease like a team that's, say, 2.5, and they've got 2 key numbers really, like 3 and 7, because NFL games they land on 3 sort of 10% of the time, and then I think on 7 sort of 7 to 8% of the time. So you'll take a team that's like 1.5, and you'll tease it through the 3, through the 7 to 7.5. So you'll add either 6 or 6.5 points on. And then you combine that with another team where you do the same thing. You're either moving it up or down through 7, through 3 to get onto the other side. So 6 or 7, 6, either 6, 6.5 or 7 points. And then you join those 2 together. And the theory behind it is it's just all maths. Like, you're just looking for teams to cover those key numbers. And I kind of look at some of these games and I think the same thing. And I don't necessarily, I think mathematically, there aren't the same kind of key numbers, so it probably doesn't work in quite the same way. But like when I look at, say, the first two games on this board, like the Scarlet Zebra game and the Benetton Bulls game, I'd almost be inclined to sort of take Zebra at a much bigger number and combine that with Benetton, by 7, 8, something up to 10, whatever it is, and try and get to something there. Because although I think that some of these games, I have some confidence in those numbers, but I think the ones that are inflated, you could probably just inflate them a little bit more and then join them up. So is that teaser concept, is it something that you guys have heard before?
I've heard of it, and when you read Smart Money, you'll read all about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So
yeah, it's not.
Yeah, as I said,
no, not something I've heard of, Nathan. But we got a thread in the forum on the US sports, and I'm sure the guys like Vin Naidu and Double in our forum have definitely heard of that. So interesting. And I think, Gavin, I want to get Smart Money. I definitely read the book once, and I love reading gambling books and strategy books. But I mean, my memory, I can't remember what happened last year, so I can read that book definitely. It'll be like reading it for the first time. So definitely got to go try and get my hand on that.
Yeah.
Fareed is saying no teasers in SA. There was a teasers in Midrand at one stage, Fareed, but that closed down. But I think we're talking about a different kind of teasers in that regard. I'll say no more.
I'll go against the tide a little bit and say that I'll back Connor here. So
okay, we're going to come back.
What number did you have on this game? What number did your
21?
21. Okay, that's interesting. That's exactly, and you've got to back them at that, because that's a sizable jump. I mean, 4 of 17 is 20%. That's great. 18, 19%. Sorry, that's huge. You've got to do it.
Yeah, and although, I think there is an impression, I guess, as you said, that the Dragons have improved. But I think it's possibly if you just deep dive into the numbers a little bit more, there's still probably the 3rd worst team in the competition, maybe 2nd worst equal, and so it just depends on how good you think Connacht are.
I'll take 3rd worst. Last year they were worse, so I'll take it. And yes, Lolly Jackson's the guy with the Porsche. He got taken out outside his place, if I remember correctly. That was a long time ago. That was with a Serbian drug lord that got out of jail. Can't remember. Serbian
Yeah,
or
he was
something.
there somewhere in Bedford View. He was
Yeah.
taken up. But just on this game, we haven't got a points line yet. But I have enjoyed Connacht games. They do have the synthetic surface now, and I have found them playing some pretty high scoring games. Look, there were only 45 points, but it still beat the original line last week against Leinster. But obviously, the Dragons' defense is going to be nothing like Leinster's defense. So, guys, my strategy on this game will probably be to wait for the points lines before deciding to get involved in this one. Let's move on now to the NPC final, though. And we're also going to quickly touch on the Japan-New Zealand game. Gav, you want to say something first?
Yeah, before Nathan says anything, I'm going to tell you that Bay of Plenty win this game. I'm going to have a bet here. I watched a little bit of the semi-final. I was very impressed. And I think that I like to back plus teams to win on the board in a final. I just want to check one thing with you, Nathan. Do they offer in New Zealand? Are you able to take the team to win the tournament at this point? I know you can, obviously, weeks ago, but when there's just two finalists, do they grab you on the, forcing you to back the draw as well, or can you take them to lift the cup at this point during the week?
No, you can still take whatever effectively like a draw no bet, and I think the only difference is that it's obviously includes overtime, which is the difference between like a straight bet, because that's effectively what's going to decide the trophy, right? Like, there is the possibility of overtime.
Yeah, Bay of Plenty.
Nathan, the game itself. I agree with Gavin's Bay of Plenty call.
I do, yeah, and I think there's 4.5 is widely available, and I do obviously prefer it at that number. Finals obviously everywhere, generally pretty tight games, and if you look at the NPC final last year, the line was sort of anywhere between 2.5 and 3.5, and the game landed 3. So the number that you got was super important, and I think that's probably going to be a little bit the same here. But I could repeat the same thing that I said about Bay of Plenty last week, but all of those things are still true. I think they feel like a bit of a team of destiny. I think they probably wanted a bit more than Wellington. Maybe Wellington won it.
This is their first final, if I'm correct.
Yeah, this would be in the kind of modern kind of era of it. They actually won it back in the late 70s for the last time. That was before there was a final. It was just the team that finished top, took the trophy kind of thing. So. Like Bay of Plenty quite a lot here. I think it's a coin flip, so taking them on the board is a good option. But I think anything outside of 3, I think is good too, because I could easily see this being just won by a last minute penalty by either team. So if you take the 3.5, as I said, last year was a classic example. The number that you got mattered. You took the 2.5, you're a loser. You got the 3.5, you're a winner. So,
what's the weather like for the game? Do you know?
I don't know specifically, but it's kind of coming into summer here. It's very summery at the moment, and I'd be very surprised if it wasn't. It's an afternoon game, which is good too. So chances are it's going to be fine, sunny, good weather. It'll be a good game. And I'm actually I'm from Bay of Plenty originally, so I'm a fan, but it's not guiding my decision making here. I just think that they've been super consistent all year, and I think they've got a really good shot at taking it.
I allow my Lions to guide my decisions. I'm okay with it.
Hey, Gav, I just want to confirm something with you. You said you're watching the game, eh?
Yes, I'll watch it.
You know what time it is?
It's like 3 o'clock would be Papa's 4 our time.
Yeah, 4:05 on. The
reason I think it's so early.
I think the reason they play it so early is, of course, because Japan play New Zealand just afterwards in the.
Yeah, Hopper 6. Yeah, 2 hours later. Correct.
Yeah.
Well, what's that handicap? So, I like Japan.
We'll bring that one in.
If I see the number, I'm going to be quite excited. I haven't looked at it.
Well, Gav, you could.
Yeah, no, 35. I'm going to tell you, I was a Japan punter at 25. Never mind 35.
Okay, you like Japan. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what Eddie Jones is going to pull out of the old closet there. New Zealand for me now on the strong side, the 35.5 is big.
Let's talk about points here. Take the 35 with a 65, that leaves you 30. That's 15 points. I'm going to tell you, take Japan more than 15 points here, 15 and a half. Japan will score 16 points in this game. I'm pretty sure they will. And I'm going to tell you 35 is way too much. I don't even need to think about that. It's way too much. They pushed them close last time.
Well, before I just ask Nathan's comment, I know he's not as big into the internationals. And this, I think, is very much our, let's call this a bit of an appetizer for the internationals that lie ahead in November. All Blacks picking no Barrett, says Faridi's all over them. He'd say he's not a big Barrett fan. Nathan, yourself, I mean, I know this is not the sort of game you'll get heavily involved in, but what does your gut tell you about that handicap?
Yeah, I'm actually like sort of working on something around internationals at the moment, because I figure there's so many gaps and windows for internationals now. Like it's going to be a month with no URC and no Prem, so it's kind of like, well, I probably need to find something to fill the gap there. These games like this, because they can really go either way. Like you watch the first sort of 5-10 minutes and they could have 3 tries, after 10 minutes, and it's just going to be an absolute blowout. And then, the flip side can be true as well, where it becomes a bit of a grind. And what happens, I think, is that whether it's like an on-field decision or a coaching decision, there's a little bit of a mind shift, which becomes like, all right, this is not a festival game anymore. This is something that we need to take a bit seriously. And they start playing proper rugby. They'll go, all right, let's play field position. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're not going to try and run it from their own goal line, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of that gets decided, I think, in that first 10 minutes, just depending on how things go. So yeah, I don't have a strong feeling for these games. Like I said, they can go one of 2 ways, and you're never really too sure what that's going to look like. And I mean, you look at like last year's World Cup, when there were people talking about, like how competitive Italy were going to be against New Zealand, and it's going to be a close game, and all of this kind of stuff. And then I think what did they win by 90 or something? Whatever it was. You just don't know.
Yeah,
they didn't beat Commanders.
Looking at this,
that game, New Zealand didn't beat the Miners in that game against Italy, if I remember correctly. But I was going to say one more thing. I could be wrong. I'll say one more thing.
No way,
Nathan.
About 30 points. Yeah, maybe by more.
No, in the World Cup, they beat Italy by like 90 points or something. Remember?
Exactly.
Maybe I'm thinking of another game. Yeah, okay, no problem. Yeah, no. I don't remember getting involved in that. I just remember the result. Anyway, the point I'm making, Nathan, I think, I must be honest, I'm quite surprised you haven't got involved in international games, because from a bookmaker's point of view, and I'm a punter as well, so I'm on both sides of the fence, I'm going to tell you, these games are harder for bookmakers to price up because they're less frequent. We've got this Wellington Bay of Plenty game. They've played each other, 10 times in the last 5-6 years, whereas Japan, New Zealand hasn't happened 10 times. It's probably happened twice. So if you're better than the bookmaker and you put a bit more time into it, you will make money from these internationals, absolutely. Especially if you know the players and you've done your homework and you've made your algorithms, you'll win. I'm more successful in internationals than I am with normal week-to-week rugby. I just find it far easier to read because the bookmakers don't put that much work into it because it's so rare.
I think I totally agree with all of that. The flip side is then it just becomes a volume thing, right? So if you look at French Pro D2 rugby, it's a 30-week competition, 16 teams, there's 240 regular season games. It's just the opportunities to bet on those. There's just far more of them. So if I combine that and this time of year, NPC, URC, Premiership, top 14 French rugby, you get weeks where there's 35, 37 games to bet on. It's like betting NBA or Major League Baseball. Just the volume of opportunities that you get in a week. And that at the moment is kind of more important to me because I'm sort of more trying to load up on volume. And I did see, it was interesting actually looking at Farid's comment. Farid, he seems like a pretty sharp guy, and he was talking about out of his 30 games, which sounds like he's roughly betting the same kind of competitions, that he's sort of cherry picking. I think it was sort of 5 games or something like that. And I kind of take a different approach, which is like I know I've got an edge. I don't know exactly. There's obviously a hell of a lot of variance in a game like rugby, compared to some other sports. you don't really know what's going to happen, right? So if you want your edge to play out, you need to spread it over as large a sample size as you can to then overcome that variance and actually realize that edge. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do. So, if you looked at last week, for example, whatever it is, 30 games that were running, I ended up having a go at all 8 URC games, a couple from Prem, there was a couple from a few others. And in the end, probably, I was betting on, I guess it was probably 15, 16 games. So about 50% of what's available. And of the ones that I didn't, it was either because the number that I had matched the line, okay, I'll leave that alone, or that second level analysis that I'm looking at would be like, oh, okay, well, my model's telling me to back Cardiff, but I can see that it's been wrong about Cardiff, 4 weeks in a row. Don't touch that one either. And so you start, because often you get to a point where finding good bets is, you kind of max out at that. And then it's like at the other end of the scale, can I find bad bets to eliminate? And if you can eliminate the bad bets, because, a bad bet is worth 1.1, a loser's worth 1.1 could be the winner being worth 1, that kind of situation. So if you can chop out those losers, and so that's kind of, where I get to. So for me, it's more like, okay, I can find opportunities in 50% of the games, and there's 30 something games. That becomes like a volume thing. That's, I can scale that out.
I must admit, Nathan, that makes a hell of a lot of sense what you're saying there. And it reminds me almost of like a cricketer. He's got certain shots that they go out to more often. And if you cut those shots, I remember, I think it was Steve Waugh of Australia, just stopped the hook shot. He used to love hooking, but he always used to go out, so he stopped it. And it's kind of like, I hear exactly what you're saying. It doesn't actually work. I mean, Fareed's system is great as well, maybe narrowing on 1 or 2, but I can understand if you're looking at it and say, my model gives me an edge, then you want to play all the games where you've got an edge, because you know that not all of them are going to arrive. And so to pick them, you're going to find yourself picking the wrong game, and then you're going to be kicking yourself for not backing that one. So I like your strategy then. I hadn't thought of it the way you said it now. To me, that makes a lot of sense. Any comments from you there, Gav, before we get into best bets?
I used to bet on every game. Didn't work for me. So if you're getting that right, well done.
But I'm
going to go further and say, Nathan, I used to bet the same amount of money on every game. And I just found that I was getting, I'd had weeks, obviously, where I was winning. But again, when I say every game, I was backing all 7 Super Rugby games. I don't know if I backed this French stuff, I haven't even looked at it. English stuff, I didn't look at it. So, it's just time. I suppose in retirement, I can look at that. But I'm also watching the game. So I'm really, even with Super Rugby, I found that my stake levels were much higher involving South African teams because I could read them better. And for whatever reason, obviously because I watched them more, but there's probably other reasons. You take a sevens tournament, for instance. There used to be 45 games in the sevens tournament. I'd have a bet on every game. And I was beating I had a better percentage. I was winning more than I was losing, but I wasn't making money. And a good friend of mine came to him and he said, before this tournament starts, let's work through these. He says, you got the first games. Which ones, out of these first 8 games, what do you like? I said, this is my best one. This is my second. He said, why are you putting the same stake on it? And ever since that conversation, and I started to adjust my stake per game based on what I felt like, I was starting to back 3, sometimes 4 out of the 8, of which 1 I had a decent size bet, 2 or 3, the next 2, a medium bet, and then a smaller bet on the 4th one. And the other 4 games I left alone, and I started to show profit. And I applied the same theory going to Super Rugby. And I just felt that, I looked for the bet of the week, 2 bets of the week, 3 bets of the week, and I stopped backing every one of the 7 games. And yes, I'm giving you my call this week on all 8 of these URC games. But honestly, probably going to get involved in 3 or 4 of them. Unlikely to have all 8. And you know what? If I call it right, I call it right. If I don't, I don't. I learn from it next week. But I've stopped having. I have less bets now. I watch more rugby and have less bets. I used to have more bets and watch less rugby. So I've switched it around. I'm enjoying it. And again, it also depends on what you're trying to pay for, what you're doing with the money. I used to have to pay school fees with this money. I didn't miss a minute of any game. Watched every single game. Still don't know the players' names, but I watched every game and I made money. But today, my motivation is completely different. I don't know. I have less. I spend less on these bets, and I, for some reason, enjoy them more. There's less pressure, less anxiety. I don't know if I even have much of that, but yeah, I'm punting for a different reason. Let's put it this way. Put it that way at the moment. I'm a different punter to what I was a few years ago.
That's actually interesting. Sorry, just quickly, you're talking about when you bet more games versus fewer, and it does like even out that variance. The ride becomes less bumpy, and for me anyway, mentally, like you stop sweating individual games as much, right? So it's kind of like what's the balance at the end of the weekend, like rather than going, oh, I lost that one, won that one, I really need to win this one, like you don't have to care about that. And I think the other thing that just around the staking thing is that for me, like flat staking has been easier because when you're trying to cover a lot of ground and I've automated a lot of stuff, so it doesn't take as much time as perhaps you might think. And the other thing is with the flat staking is that I'm not spending time thinking about how much bet to put on different things. And again, like mentally, it just frees you. It's like, right, I need to get to a number, and again, sometimes just getting to the number is hard enough because you're looking at all the different outs that you've got. Some of them you can do more than others. Different times of the week. You've got different max limits. And it's just kind of like, right, I just know the number I need to get to in terms of the stake that I'm looking to put on. And it's one less thing to think about.
Yeah, I like that as well. Fareed just saying he tries not to chase the value, let it come to him. I think, Fareed, that is something quite important as well, especially for, like a punter like myself as well, is not to chase the value. It's something I do sometimes, but I agree that it's not the best of strategies. Gents, let's move into the best bets. If we can just sum up any plays that you really like this weekend. Oracle, I'll start with you.
Edinburgh minus, Dragons plus, Lions plus, Glasgow, Ulster. I don't know. I don't have a best bet. I'm looking forward to my 100 to 1 double here. I'm going to go with Nathan here, and I haven't done it in many years, and maybe I stick the same amount of money on every game. I don't know. Not every game. I won't back all of them. I won't back all 8. Yeah, I like Dragons plus. I think they win on the board, so that'll be a small one. I like the Lions to win on the board, but probably a multiple I could take. And you ask, as a bookmaker, I love people taking multiples, but I got to say that's soccer. In rugby, you can be quite clever and still get a decent multiple. And in cases like this, taking a Lions plus onto a Dragons plus onto an Edinburgh minus and an Ulster minus, that's close to 10, 12 to 1, depending on where you take it. That's my multiple, small at 12 to 1, 10, 12 to 1. I'm happy. But bets of the week, I'm going to say Edinburgh. I like Edinburgh minus. That's my
Edinburgh
one.
For Oracle. We'll bring Nathan in now just to say to Johannes treble, weekly treble, Glasgow plus 7.5. They have plenty plus 3.5. Ulster minus 4.5. That's at 6 to 1. Just to mention Peter Paul and my brother's friend, I have seen the comments on units. We're not going to get into that tonight. We've otherwise we'll be going in.
That's for December.
Something we could discuss. Yeah. Gavin, I was saying we can do a few shows in December and that talk about unit sizes and stuff like that. It's something that does definitely warrant quite a bit of discussion. Nathan, wrapping up on your side, what are your strongest fancies?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way that Oracle does in the sense that there's quite a lot of uncertainty around these. And if you ask me right now which ones I'm 100% going to get involved in, I don't think I can tell you for sure. I can tell you that I suspect that I'll probably be involved with Ulster. That's just a kind of a feeling right now rather than anything concrete. So probably Ulster and definitely I think on Bay of Plenty. So I'll say that Bay of Plenty is probably my best bet.
Excellent. I got to the end of the show. Yes, Gav?
So Nathan, I'm going to ask you this question, this final, your NPC final. So I've been to a few Curry Cup finals, and the most I've paid for a ticket, I haven't gone in the last 3 years, so it's probably a little bit more now. But I'd say I don't think I've paid more than 150 Rand, which is probably 12 to 15 of your dollars to watch a Curry Cup final. What does it cost to watch this NPC final? Have you been to one? Just general, and I'm interested in that.
Yeah, so I think it'll be in that range. So I think it'll be probably around the $20 mark, which is about 200 Rand, something around there. And so I haven't been to a final, but just thinking about Auckland when they play at NPC, and they have really cut price tickets sometimes. They'll have $15, $10 tickets to get people in, and kids go free. And so what you'll find is that people just come along and they take a whole pile of kids, and the kids just run around. And the truth is that, like, for especially if it's just a regular season game, people don't necessarily even care about watching the game, because the kids are just running around, right? They just love being there. They don't really give a shit about the actual game itself. So it's kind of just a way to get families and kids in and get them watching. So yeah, there'd probably be a little bit of that. The only thing I'd say about this final is, in a way, it's a shame that it's not Bay of Plenty hosting, because they've got one of those smaller kind of boutique grounds. I think they'd get a bit of atmosphere.
So this is in that Caton Stadium, the yellow.
Which is a little bit of a shame, as I said. Like, you'd rather see it played in the regional places like Tauranga or New Plymouth, when Taranaki hosted last year. Hawke's Bay, these kind of places. But it is what it is.
Like Glasgow and Stellenbosch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
That's what you want. I mean,
anyway, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks to all the boys in the live show. I just want to see what Mark Dumpy, I'll bring up his comment to end us off. The prices for Islandby, New Zealand, cheapest is €85 and top prices are €200. Yeah, those big international test
matches. Don't go. Go to the local pub. Apparently, pubs in Ireland are in trouble. Go and support your local pub. Don't pay that money.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much to the guys in the live chat. There were a couple of times tonight I couldn't keep up. And then, of course, to the two guests, Oracle, great chatting to you. We'll no doubt be in touch over the weekend and start talking about some more sports quizzes. And Nathan, enjoy the Friday now that lies ahead of you, and all the best for the weekend.
Sure. Thank you. And go the Bay.
Go the Bay. Thanks, everyone.
Go the Bay.